Presented by Kamuk Ukulele Magazine, this is Ukulele Stories. Aloha, Brian!
Hey, aloha, Cameron. How are you doing, man?
I am doing really, really well, and welcome to Ukulele Stories. We were just saying, sort of off air, that I've known you for so many years, but I've never really talked to you in depth about your ukulele story, even though, you're a very prominent player in the world. So,
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that.
well, great to have you here. Let's start right at the beginning. How did you get into the ukulele? Was it at school?
Well, growing up in Hawaii, the ukulele was always a part of my life. And for a lot of families growing up, everyone had an ukulele. So I guess my first teachers were, my mom would play a little and she'd sing, and my dad would play a little. And, watching all my uncles and aunts play at parties or at the kitchen table. And then I think maybe it was in the fourth grade, they had an ukulele class where they taught you just basic chords and would sing. And then I just gravitated to that, and all the school kids kind of hang out and see who plays ukulele, and you gravitate to the better players because you want to learn. And that basically that's how it started.
Yeah, brilliant. What made you sort of go on with it when, presumably a lot of people didn't?
Oh, I just love to play it. The sound that it made. I could play songs on it, pop songs, and all the fun songs of that time. I guess all the Hawaii Five O's and stuff. We just share. It was we'd meet after school or during lunch, and all the kids would just play. And then I found that I was getting proficient at it, so we'd play with all the better players and so on, and that's how we learned. There was no YouTube. We had to listen and figure out songs on our own. And I think I benefit, and a lot of people benefited from that because there was no sheet music. There were no, again, YouTubes or stuff. We had to listen to albums and 8 tracks, and listen to the radio and try and figure out songs. So for a lot of us in Hawaii growing up, we developed an ear for playing.
Do you think that's been a little bit lost now with, so many resources available now?
Yes. Because you ask people, like, play me a song, and it's like, okay, let me get my book, or open to page 37, or you need all of that.
Mm.
Whatever is going to help you facilitate to play the ukulele, I'm all for it. But you need to be able to figure stuff out on your own, I think, because then it becomes yours. While growing up and playing in Hawaii, we all emulated, we all copied, right? Someone that maybe inspired us, or the music inspired us. But that helps you build musical vocabulary, even though you're copying it note for note or whatever. But then eventually, you want to make it your own. So you have choices to make. And playing by ear, reading music, however that helps you make those choices, then, you need all of that in your toolbox, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. So, sort of finishing high school then, did you always want to be a musician?
No, uh, it was just fun. We had a group in high school, and once we found out that we could get paid, like playing at parties for food, that's what started it. I worked for the U.S. Postal Service for 30 years, and in the meantime, I was still playing ukulele, and I was still playing, I guess, professionally out of high school, playing with groups, mostly Hawaiian music. It wasn't like trying to be the next Jake or the next Otasan, or there's a huge culture of ukulele players in Hawaii that play in groups, are part accompanists, that sing, and not just solo acts, so to speak. You know.
Yeah.
So when I found out that I could just keep playing with people, and people kept asking me to play, I kept that part of, while I was working at the post office. I kept that. So when I did retire from the post office, now I still have all of those opportunities that come my way, and I'm probably like the busiest ukulele player out there now.
Definitely. I always think it's interesting that you class yourself as an accompanist, whereas you're clearly good enough to be a solo sort of player. Did it never really appeal to you to be the star of the show?
Oh no, I mean I still do that. I gotta wear different hats, right? Like when I go out, I'm Bryan Tolentino, the soloist. But I always love playing music with other, whether it be ukulele players or other artists, because then you create music in real time, live, with unrehearsed,
Mm.
and we're just playing music. And those are the situations that I guess I thrive on. People can just call me up, and someone used this term. With Brian, you just got to add water, and then you know, because being an accompanist, you have it's different than being a soloist. People think, oh, he's just accompanying somebody, but you have to have supremely attentive listening. So it's not just listening or doing what you're doing. It's okay. What is the guitar doing? What is the bass player doing? Where do I fit in to enhance that trio, but all in a while accompany the vocalist? You know, so it's
Very difficult.
um if you don't do it,
Well, to me, it is.
yeah,
I've just grown up playing on my own, so
right, right.
to me, doing that just seems really, really tricky. Sort of, keeping tempo with other people, and it's difficult.
It's through experience, and it's through added vocabulary. Yeah, using the whole fingerboard. You paid for it, you might as well use it. So I use that analogy where if you're going to play chords, usually on the piano you're playing here, but you have the whole keyboard. So that's my thought process. And guitar players, they play wherever the hell they want, and once they come up past the fifth fret, right, it's right in our wheelhouse. So I'll move because I want to hear two hands on the piano. I want to hear two hands on the ukulele instead of one, because then the sound spectrum is a lot broader,
Mm.
you know, with two ukuleles. Because you see a lot of ukulele groups, they're playing all C in the first position. And to me, it's like, yeah, you're all going to the piano and playing C in the first position. Utilize all the keys, and that's what I hear, and that's how I approach it when I'm playing. Now, again, there are four strings on the ukulele. A lot of major chords are only three notes. So something is doubled up. It's either octave or doubled up. I tend to want to put four notes in the chord because I want to hear the four-part harmony as opposed to the three-part harmony. So that's kind of what I do as far as being the accompanist.
Mm.
Seeing where the vocal note is. I don't always have to play in first position. I'll play in the second position if it sounds better to the overall presentation. And this is all like performance stuff. You know, we always play for an audience, and we are our first audience. So if it sounds good to me, then I'll play it.
Yeah,
Is it theoretically correct sometimes? No,
doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. If it sounds good and it works, because if we all followed the rules of music, we'd all sound the same, right?
Yeah, well, that's sort of getting back to what you were saying before about making a song your own.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, if we're all playing the same sheet music, it's all just going to get very boring very quickly.
Well, but which is fine though, because people they're happy with that. A lot of these groups, and
It's all about the context, right?
it's all about the content.
If you're in a ukulele group and you're all playing together and you're fairly inexperienced, that is an amazing thing to do. But if you're playing in Waikiki for 100 tourists, it's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So it's all about intent, application, and if you're having a good time, whether you only know three chords, then awesome.
Absolutely.
And that's my biggest thing. I don't care how you notate it. My biggest thing when I teach workshops is, are you able to play it? Can you hear it? Because that's why you're playing. Unless you're teaching, I guess, then you need to know. And again, there's no standardized way of playing and or teaching ukulele. Like Western, you have to play classical guitar like this. You have to play with ukulele. It's totally not standardized. People try to standardize it, which works best for them, and that's fine. But there's no, even in Hawaii, the way Auntie Genoa strums is different than someone else strums in the Big Island or Kauai, and it's all correct to us.
And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of the uke, really.
And I always encourage people to say, hey, if you learn something from James Hill, apply it to what I'm doing, and vice versa. If you like something what Herb Otta Jr. is doing, and you can apply it to your own music,
Mm,
of course, I don't want, although it is flattering for you to sound like me, I want you to sound like you.
exactly.
By the tools you have, the vocab you have. But that's at a higher level, though, as far as performing, I guess, or just taking it to the next level or next layer to your learning.
Mm. Who were your musical heroes growing up?
I remember listening to albums and 8 tracks. Otasan for one, because his melodies and stuff are so clean and so pure. I listened to like Peter Moon with the Sunday Manoa Peter Moon Band. Eddie Kamai was a big inspiration because it's all Hawaiian folk music, right? So that's what you get to play with a bass player and steel guitar and stuff. So the music just resonated within me. It's funny because I don't listen to ukulele music. I just listen to music, you know, jazz influence or swing. But all my contemporaries listening to Kelly Boy and Jake and Herbotta Jr. and Benny Chong and Byron Yasui, even Hollyhock Seaberry, who I play with regularly. And I tell people the learning never stops. I can learn from people who are 20 years my senior and 20 years my junior. But you have to be willing to accept that. It's like when you tell me that, oh no, I've made it, then, you telling me that your learning has stopped. I always continue to learn, even if it's just for me, just subtle stuff, chord efficiency and sustaining notes and, all of those things I continually work on.
You touched a little bit there on teaching, and I know you do a lot of teaching and workshops and some online teaching as well. What do you enjoy most about it?
Just the reward that seeing the students, like you see that moment that the light bulb goes off, or those aha moments, and it's just helping them facilitate to the next level or the levels, and bring joy. It's like opening up a door for them, and they finally realize. I've heard people tell me, I've been trying to learn this for like 15 years, and in one workshop, because I do it a little different. I just come from a different angle. I come from more of a player's angle. I tell myself I don't want to be my math teacher. I sprout out formulas and stuff. You got to be engaging, you got to make it fun, and everything that I teach, it comes from experience, stuff that I've learned along the way, but it comes from an experience where I actually applied it to either live performances or recordings. I didn't study ukulele at the University of Hawaii, got my degree, and now I'm going to teach you. There's nothing wrong with that, because a dear friend of mine, Mika Kane, got his music degree. Professor Yasui was his mentor. I come from, no, I've used this on this recordings, I've used this, I play it live, because not everybody wants to know how to read music.
No.
They just want to play. Yeah. So that's why I say whatever resonates within you and helps you facilitate your learning, that's what you aim for.
Mm.
So I just love sharing. I don't really call it teaching. I just share through experiences, and I make it fun. It has to be fun for me. Like again, I said I don't want to be my math teacher, man.
You said before as well, you play so much, you perform so much. Are there any gigs that are particularly memorable for you?
No, I mean I've done a lot of festivals, and it's just fun playing, and I bring that with me. I don't care if it's in front of 3 people or 3,000 people. You just gotta have fun doing what you're doing. You gotta be prepared, you know. But it's just playing. Like you've been to these gigs where you think nobody's listening, right? And you're playing, and then someone comes up to you, say, "I really enjoyed what you did. I really appreciate." Or they'll say, when I'm performing in a group, I said, "I was really listening to you because you're playing a lot of these nice fills and stuff." Okay, oh, thank you, because someone is always listening. So I try and bring that every time when I play. Just play, have fun, make sure you know what you're doing, or not. Or not, but because mistakes are part of it. Yeah, with live music, not so much recorded music. So if I make a mistake recording a video and I post it on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, it's like, hey, this is what you're gonna get. And I know this generation or generations, they're all about, they don't want to be vulnerable, right? Every take has to be perfect, and the smile and the camera and the lighting. I mean, I get that, because that's what they see. But for me, it's like, no, you got to learn through your mistakes. You have to, everyone makes mistakes. That's the biggest thing, though. Learn from your mistakes, and keep making the mistakes.
Yeah, that's a great lesson. I mean, I'm guilty of that as well. Doing 300 takes of an Instagram video. It's like, well, what am I doing with my life?
No, but if you watch some of mine, it's like gutter balls and all. I'll just play. It's like, okay, that's good. It's live. I mean, I get it. Because again, the younger generations, they don't want to seem vulnerable. So I'm always encouraging you guys to come sit in with us. And it's not where it's open mic and we're just gonna back you up. No, you have to be able to play what we're playing if you want to be an accompanist and if you want to sit in a jam session. But there's so much to learn.
Mm.
What to do, what not to do, when to do it, when not to do it, and you can't get that by, just playing along to videos or learning that way.
Hmm.
You gotta be thrown in the fire, man, or the ocean,
Or the ocean.
sink or swim. So yeah, not everybody can, not everybody wants to, and that's fine.
No, but it is the best way to learn, or to even just figure out if you want to learn. You know,
Yeah,
because you have to want to do it, like you were saying before. You have to want to do it, and you have to enjoy doing it, or else why are you doing it?
you gotta fool around and figure it out.
Mm, mm.
In real time, because the lesson learned too is, okay, I'm going to make mistakes and stuff like that. How do I get back on track?
Yeah,
Where do I pick up again? It's not like, okay, wait, stop, stop, stop. Can we do this? Can we start from the beginning? Oh no. And it gives your brain time to think, okay, I messed up. Where am I? You either have to use audible clues or visual clues. What key are we in? What chord was that? Okay, now I'm back on track. That kind of stuff isn't taught.
no,
It's not taught. So you just have to live through that. Someone asked me, how do you become instinctive and intuitive? Well, you get that way by doing, making the mistakes and getting back on track.
yeah. I always teach people, in workshops and things, if you screw up a song in any context, if you're playing in a group or if you're doing a solo performance, never stop. Just, even if you can't remember anything, just go back to the chorus, finish the song, move on. No one notices and no one minds. The worst thing you can do is stop and then have everyone feel sorry for you. And then it's just this kind of horrible feedback loop.
Yep, yep, yep. That's learned through experience. There's nothing like if that's what you want. If you want to gain experience playing in front of people, then you got to play in front of people, mistakes and all. And if that's not your bag, then that's not your bag. But if you do want to get better at it, you have to continually get up in front of the audience, whether it start off with open mics or you're playing in a group at a performance. You have to put yourself in those positions to get better and to learn. It's easy sitting on your couch playing and practicing and getting all of that, but it's different when you got to stand up in front of people, stand up in front of an audience. I tell a lot of my students, stand up and practice, because if that's how you're going to perform, that's how you should practice, because there's different biomechanical ways of tension and stuff like that, right? Again, it's easy to sit in your couch or in a chair with the TV on, and you know, but you need to face the live bullets. Stand up, practicing. If you're singing, your diaphragm works differently. Every once in a while, I'd go out to the mall. We have outdoor malls, right? I just find a bench and I'll just start playing. Like, I'll start performing for myself, but there's so much distractions going on, and that helps you focus. I cannot stand in front of a mirror. I don't want to look at myself. Because you ever heard that, right? Yeah, you got to stand in front of a mirror. No, I cannot do that. So every once in a while, like when I have stuff coming up, I'll go out and just go to the nearest mall and I'll go find a bench and I'll just play. And then people will stop and listen. So it's a different focus, right?
Just because it puts you in front of people and you just get used to that interaction.
Exactly.
And they don't have to be listening. It's more about you practicing being a live performer, basically.
Because the performance may be the same, but the audience is always different. If you practice, I know Jake, for instance, when he practices through his amp. He practices because he wants to get that tone that he wants when he's playing. Because all of his performances are like huge performances. So I found that interesting. Like he practices literally. He'll plug into his amp, his pedal board, whatever, and he'll practice like that.
Yeah, I've done similar things, and in like the run up to a festival or something, I'll use the mic. I might not plug it in, but I'll have it there, because having something, 2 centimeters from your face is very different than not having it there.
Yep. Anything to help the next generations or whoever aspires to be a performer or ukulele player, or there's no secrets. That's why, there are no secrets. What I do, what you do is totally different. I can learn from you. You can learn from me. We learn from watching other performers. And yeah, you just gotta have fun with it, man.
Yeah. Well, you got your Facebook page as well, Ukulele Friends Hawaii, and that is great as well because it is just about sharing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's sharing about the uniqueness of Hawaii, because it's different, right? The ukulele is our first culture. So, we look at it differently, we play it differently, we've learned differently. The great thing about it is We can all speak different musical languages, but we can all arrive at the same destination, man. You can have guys who read music, don't read music, sing, don't sing, strum, pick, but we can all make music together, and that's the awesome thing. I love seeing when I travel to these festivals, and there's built-in love in the community. You don't see too many ukulele players with angst. And it's just a fun community. It's just a fun community. You can find ukulele communities all over the world, sing-alongs or kanikapilas or whatever.
Yeah, which is incredible. And, I like to call this the sort of third wave of ukulele popularity, brought on mainly by the internet in the 90s. And obviously, you've been in Hawaii that entire time. Did you see a real marked difference in the kind of late 90s when things started picking up and people started playing uke around the world?
I think around the world, yes, most definitely. But because it's always been here, we've always had people who played, and the next generation of players and stuff. So I always kept an eye on who's who and what they're doing and stuff. But when you go to England or Cairns or Japan, and you see these communities just huge love for the ukulele, and it's very heartwarming.
Does that make you proud as well a little bit?
Well, not so much a pride, but it's just heartwarming. You know, it's not the universal language; it's the language of the universe.
Mm.
Music is, yeah. So anything we can do that enhances our lives, and music does that. Whether you're singing, you're not singing, you're playing ukulele, even if you're playing for your grandkids. You start off playing for your children. When you learn, you're playing for your parents. Then you play for your grandkids. So when I was teaching in the high schools, I said, you know what, music will always follow you the rest of your life. It's not like sports or athletics. You peak and that's it. Then you end up playing pickleball or something. But music will always be with you, and keep that with you. Keep that always in here, man. Keep that always in your heart.
You've been involved in a lot of recordings as well, and won a couple of Hoku awards. Is it two or more than two? I'm not sure.
Well, I have. Wait, I don't know. I don't keep track. I have two with Herb Otta Jr.,
Yeah, for Ukulele Friends.
but I'm on like 70 something CDs. I'm on a couple Grammy projects, and I'm happy for my friends. Even though I may have played a big part or a little part, it's as an accompanist, especially recording, you got to chuck your ego at the door, and whatever you do to make that project work and enhance that the artist's performance or the recording, then it takes a different temperament to say, oh no, I'm not Raya Helm and Bryan Tolentino or Hokozuru Meister. No, it's no. I'm there to support however I can. Is there more lead? Do I need to play more rhythm? More involved kind of stuff? Some people, they hate the studio, but I thrive in the studio because it's that creative process. There's a certain pressure that, like, wait, we're gonna hear this forever. But it's like, you know what, Brian? You just be confident in yourself and you record. I think most of the stuff that I've recorded wasn't written out. Producer Dave Tusarone, who's produced a lot of award-winning CDs. He did Kalani Pe'a's 3 Grammy award-winning CDs. He just calls me, said, I got a session for you, and he'll just say, just Brianize it and do your fairy dusting. He was the guy who coined the phrase fairy dusting.
Really? I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I get that term fairy dusting from Dave. He said, "Well, just fairy dust it." I said, okay. And in my mind, I know exactly what to do. It's just stuff here and there. Just filling space or leaving space. That's the thing I hear about a lot of these young ukulele players. They try and fill up too much space. They don't know when not to play. You got to learn when not to play. And this is just my manao or my take on it. Everyone's competing against each other, right? The newest bells and whistles, the newest this and that. And I get it, but I played music to play music because it brought me joy, not to compete with anyone. We were all probably like that, because you want to get better, right? But there comes a point where, no, I love what I do. I can make a living accompanying people or accompanying, but I can also, do solo gigs or dual gigs that I organize. If you want to be successful, you got to diversify and do kind of all of that. That would be my suggestion to a lot of these young ukulele players. Because after Jake, there's going to be someone else and someone else and someone else.
Do you have any tips then for someone who might be going into the studio for the first time?
Relax. Oh, practice to a metronome. Practice to a metronome. Maybe practice through your amp. Breathe, because as you know, Cameron, it's totally different. It's a different beast, but your listening goes up 100-fold. You hear breathing, you hear nail clacking, you hear all of that. So if you've never been into the studio, I guess you can never be prepared for that first time. I remember jokingly, my first studio session, I told the engineer, "Can you move the click?"
I did that too.
They're like, can you move the click? Like, what do you mean I'm off? But then you just gotta lock into it, and let it flow. But this is coming from experience, right? Let it flow, and not always be on it. I use this a lot. It's great to be on it, but you gotta be in it. You gotta be in it, man. The goal when we play ukulele is to play chords accurately in time, but I want the music to sound like this, but still have that feel. Because once you get all of this, doing all the workshops, lessons, you get all this analytical stuff that you learn. How do you connect this to this?
Your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just use what you use, and you hear this, you got to feel it. But you don't know what that means if you've never been in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just relax. Again, have fun with it. Be as prepared as you can, because you won't be. Some people, they're just great live performers. Some people are great studio performers. It's not always one and the same. You got to play with that. You don't want it to sound too antiseptic, I call it,
That's good.
right?
Totally.
Because it's an organic instrument. It's a happy instrument. So you don't want it to sound too antiseptic. You want it to feel organic. A lot of times when I record, if it sounds good and it feels good, but if it doesn't line up perfectly, I'm okay with that. If we all strum with the bass and it just feels better, instead of, again, that's a little bit too antiseptic for me. Yeah, so that's just my take on that. Now, what works for me, not going to work for everybody. Maybe it just works for me. I don't know.
Yeah, no, well, and as I say, I really enjoyed my first time in a professional studio. But after the like 2 solid days of recording, I've never been more tired. Like it is hard work.
It's not the physical. It is the physical, but it's also the mental. When you got to super locked in and you got to stay engaged the whole time. You cannot worry about, okay, what am I eating for lunch? Or, when you're doing
Yeah.
live gigs, you're looking at the pretty girls passing by and you hear all these clacking. Man, in the studio, you got to be extremely focused. And again, it goes back to that supremely attentive listening, because you're going to notice and hear stuff that you've never heard before that you do.
Yeah.
The breath, that squeak on the strings, the tapping when your nail hits. So a lot of times your hand placement in a studio has to be different than what you're doing live,
Mm.
because it's like, wait, I like the tone here. Would I ever play like this? No, but just for studio. There's certain chords that I've done only in the studio because I wanted that gliss. Those kinds of things in the studio, I always work on. And then it's like, well, if I can do it in a studio, then I'll do it live. Only I'll notice that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
You know, what, what does Byron say? Yeah, it's like air conditioning. A great accompanist is noticed when he's not there. I mean, everything is still going on. That's great. But you take that one element out sometimes, it's like, oh, something's missing. But when it's there, you don't notice it, you know. But then again, Byron can hear all the pitches in an air conditioning.
Well, he's I don't want to use the word freak, but
No, he is. He is, man. He
yeah,
is.
he's incredible. Speaking of fingernails hitting the uke, I think of your manicured hands. What are your tips there?
When I used to work at the post office, we had a lot of packages and stuff, and the whole office would know when I broke a nail because I'd swear, and they would know. And this is like almost 20 years ago. My wife suggested, why didn't you go to one of those nail salons? It's like, forget it. I've been going for 20 years now. For the most part, I prefer not to have them. When I'm playing solo stuff, but because most of the time I'm playing in a group and we're outdoors or whatever, it's amplified. I find that I get a little more bite and articulation. Acoustically, I would rather not have them. So a lot of times when I go into the studio, I'll shave them down. So sometimes I don't get that tack, tack, tack or that bite.
Again, different techniques for different contexts.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I've tried flat picks. I use a thumb pick. Some recordings just use flesh because I want that sound. High G, low G doesn't matter to me. People always, they stir up controversy. I just tell people, hey, whatever you choose, play it the best that you can, man. Right?
Exactly. High G versus low G and all that. Fairly nonsense, isn't
Yeah, it's like
it?
Craig G. Did I say Craig G stirs up the pot all the time?
Well, he lives there now, so you can
Yeah,
berate him. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Do you still work in artist relations at Kamaka?
Sort of. We do that mostly when we go to Nam. But if people ask, then I can put them in the correct direction as far as putting them in direct contact with the people. If they want to build an ukulele, or I'll put them in touch with Casey Kamaka or Chris Kamaka and help with that. I'm not like a used car salesman. I don't solicit. But if you ask me, then I'll always be willing to help in any way I can for that company.
Yeah. Well, what does that company mean to you, and like, why do you enjoy playing their instruments?
Um, we had a kamaka, and for me, it was a perfect extension of what I want to portray as far as musically. All the ukulele makers here in Hawaii. Well, I mean, a lot of them have offered to build me ukulele, but and I always tell them respectfully, I already have the one that I want. So if you did build one, I'd appreciate it, but I'll probably just collect dust or. And I've known Chris for years. We started playing music from right when I was right out of high school. In fact, he was in my bridal party.
Wow.
It's just that their family, they're going to do the right thing. Chris Kamaka and his brother Casey. In age, I'm right in between them somewhere. So we've always known each other. When our kids were a lot younger, we'd do family vacations and stuff. But it's just a dear friend. To me, growing up, that's what a ukulele sounded like.
Mm.
So I gravitate to that. Growing up in Hawaii, we only had koa wood, right? Or mahogany, the Martin ukuleles. But I hear there are a lot of great ukulele makers outside of Hawaii because then they're using their indigenous woods and stuff. So it's different sound qualities.
Mm.
People think I have a lot of ukuleles. I don't. Every ukulele has a specific sound that I want.
Mm.
I have a spruce top, I have an all koa, I have an African blackwood. I don't have like 10 koa ukuleles. I don't need it. I have a Martin baritone. I have a Kavika Herd baritone. I have a Beltona. Well, I say I don't have a lot, but my wife thinks otherwise.
That's not a lot compared to idiots like me.
Yeah, I don't collect. It's more function. It has to be function. I don't care what it looks like. Don't get me started on strings because every ukulele has a certain set of strings that's going to make that ukulele sound the best. If you have time and resources, then you just got to try. Basically, there are only three types of strings. Nylons, fluorocarbons, or Nile guts. Different gauges. I experiment with different gauges. Tensions. Higher tensions are just thicker gauges, basically. The most used ukuleles that I use has different sets of strings.
So you don't prefer sort of fluorocarbon to a nylon? Generally, it just depends on the instrument.
It depends on the sound. Like on my spruce top, I have Koa Kamaka, Severus classical guitar strings, thinner diameter, but with the pickup, I get more articulation and sustain. I have a Eller Bags hex pickup, so each string has a pickup, and I don't get that percussiveness that you get with pickups sometimes. Yeah, on the ukulele that I use for the Aulani, I have Herb Ota's set, which is I think a thicker gauge fluorocarbons. On my African blackwood, I have Savarez higher tension. Just because of sound, and in fact, all three have different pickups.
Yeah.
I tried putting the Savarez on. It's like, oh, this doesn't sound good. It's too bright. It's too just because of the pickup now. So if you're playing, I don't have blanket recommendations for strings. You got to pair the strings with the pickup with the acoustic sound of the ukulele. And it's just again, it's super subjective. The way I like to hear it, it might not be the way you like to hear it. What was the original question? I forget.
Oh, who cares? It's fine. Um, what about a tip for someone who might be listening to this who's not bought a ukulele but they really want to? What would you recommend?
You have to have hands-on experience with it. It's like buying shoes, man. It has to fit. So I see a lot of people, they just buy stuff online, right? On recommendations and stuff like that. You gotta hold it because it'll speak to you. You may have two, say, kala ukuleles. They're both different because it's so organic. The woods are different. One of them is gonna speak to you, and that's the one you go with. So just try. Try an inexpensive one, try a real expensive one, try a middle of the road one, and see which one tickles your fancy. Because some people buy it for all the bling and all the they can accessorize and stuff. That's the cool thing about ukulele community. You see everyone with different tuners and different straps and different cases, and so it's fun. That part is fun, but bottom line is it has to sound good. It has to feel good and it has to intonate well because I play past the fifth fret and all the way up to the 12th fret, sometimes the 15th. When I tune my ukulele, I tune it to the fifth fret and the seventh fret
Mm.
because that's where I'm usually playing. A lot of times people will tune it, open string, right? And then they'll tune the chime. What about everything in between?
It's true.
It doesn't always intonate. So a lot of times when I pick up an ukulele, I'll play, and this is just me. I'll just pick the fifth fret. If I have a tuner, then you can tell. But then I'll listen to it, and I start playing chords like past the fifth fret to see if it sounds good, and if it's easy to play. The setup is easy because as it gets higher up the fretboard, sometimes the tension is higher or the action is higher, so it's harder to play, right?
Well, let's get to the most important part of this interview, and that is
Oh.
food. Uh, so, I think you're well known for your love of food, and I think every Hawaiian I know is known for their love of food. And the few times I've been to a Kanakapila in Hawaii, food has been a huge part of it. So, what's your favorite one then? What's your go to?
Oh, growing up in Hawaii, there's so many ethnicities here.
Yeah, similar to Australia actually in that way. I think.
Similar, I
Yeah.
mean, I ate some great Chinese food in Australia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's just that we're exposed growing up to eating all types of different foods. So, whenever I travel, it's a big part of okay, I'll Google stuff. Where can I eat? What's good here? What's try this because that also makes me happy. Food and ukulele, man.
Well, I think it gets back to that sharing thing, isn't it? You're sharing music, sharing food. Yeah.
That's what it is, in the plantation days, and that's how it started, right? All the immigrants from the Philippines, Japan, Portugal, they'd all have lunch together, and they call these cow tins. They're just like boxes, like bento boxes, and everyone would start sharing each other's food, and that's how it started. We have fresh seafood, and we have great beef and fruits, and so it's great living in Hawaii. We all break bread together, and we all share, like in music. And like you said, you've been to some kanikapilas, and there's like spreads and just
So much
all
food.
over. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Whenever you go to parties or kanikapilas, you never go empty-handed. There's always bring something, even if it's too much. Too much is
Mm.
always better than too little. You know.
Remember the first time I ever met Byron Yasui? I was Dr. Byron Yasui. I was interviewing him for my magazine, Kamuk, and he said, "You got to meet Benny." I'd not at that stage not even heard of Benny Chong, but of course, the first meeting was we're going for waffles. So it's always just food,
So those are our business eatings, I call them. That's when school is in session. We used to go. Oh, no, I think you went too. The restaurant, Kirin, Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
We'd order food, we'd sit down, talk shop, and then all of a sudden, I'm here, Jake's there, Benny's here, and Byron, Hale, and we're just all having private conversations. And we're there about 11, 10, 11, and we're there till about 2:30 until they kick us out. We just play ukulele and learn from each other and share ideas and break bread and playing music
Yeah.
is nothing like it. And we still do that. We still do that, which is fun.
Well, speaking of Harley, then I did write this down. Are you the new Byron and Benny?
No, not no. But they've been a huge influence in not maybe technique, but just thought process and just their encouragement that they give us. Because whenever we have these gigs and it's open to the public, they'll show up, and they don't do that for other artists. They'll show up because they enjoy what we're doing and we do it. We play traditional Hawaiian music, but it's just different. Different grooves, different chord progression, just different. And they always give us pointers and tips. And it's funny. We did a set, Hale and I, and then we come off and Byron says, you know that second song that you played? What was that chord that you he said, you know, Holly, you were singing this note, but it was you should have played this chord. And then we both hear it. And Holly's like, damn, yeah. But that's another thing about the learning process. You have to be receptive to that. How many people can do a gig or play and Byron and Benny are sitting on a first table right in front of you, right?
That's intimidating.
It can be intimidating, but you know, now it's like, oh, great, they're here. I'm gonna learn something by playing for them,
Mm,
you
mm.
know. And then selfishly, we always call them up to play, you know, a couple songs or 8 or 10. It gets them out. It gets them out. It gets them because they rarely play. You know, they get together. I think maybe once or twice a month, and they get together with a friend and they jam. But you know, they're in their 80s, man, and the knowledge that they have
It's amazing.
is just amazing.
Mm.
You know, nobody does it. I'm not saying better. Nobody does it like Benny though.
Oh no,
Nobody.
no, totally unique.
And it's crazy. More people should gravitate and learn from. He's a master, man.
Absolutely.
He's just his chord progressions and what he hears. All he's playing passing notes upon his passing chords, which is ridiculous, man. So I mean, I try and not necessarily emulate, but I try and add some of that chord efficiency to how I do it. You know, I'll never play like him, but I can use this here. So I'm always watching him. Yeah, so learn as much as you can. The learning never stops, you know. The minute someone says that they've made it or they cannot learn anything, then they stop learning. You know, and that's fine too. That's really fine. For me, I'm always striving to get better for myself. And then hopefully it's for the listening audience, you know. I mean subtle stuff. I'm all about subtleties, man. I'm all about air conditioning.
Well, no one does it better than you. All right, final question then. Can you sum up what it is to be Hawaiian in one sentence?
Um, love of land, love of people. You do it for the betterment of everybody. Yeah. I mean, we're all individuals, but you know, we grew up like, you know, you got to help people. You know, like, hey, if I got food, then you got food, kind of deal. I guess growing up in Hawaii, there's a certain humility that we have, you know, the ukulele players. Well, and people in general, because we all grew up where we all caught cracks from everybody. You know, I mean, disciplined by not even our parents, siblings or anything. Just, you know, you're part of that family unit, yeah? So you always want to take care of everybody. Not everybody thinks this way, but, you know, just having aloha. Aloha is 24/7, not only when convenient. You know, you always got to bring it. You always got to have it. That's what it means to me.
That's a beautiful way to end it, I think. And thank you for sharing all your knowledge today.
Nah, Cameron, this was cool. When I read your message, it's like, yeah, man, I haven't talked to you in a while. I mean, I see your posts, I see your gigs, and likewise. And that's the great thing about social media. We can all kind of keep in touch, you know. And I think stemming from the pandemic, if there was anything a positive, we got to connect with people all over the world via Zoom or whatever. You know, you could go directly to the source. You know, and that's how Ukulele Friends
Mm.
kind of started. You know, we'd all Zoom together first. Then, you know, say, hey, maybe some of this stuff people would want to hear. People would want to, you know, because we're just talking shop, ragging on each other, cutting down each other. And I still get this when I travel a lot. You know, people come up and appreciate it and they thank us. They thank me for doing that during the pandemic because, you know, people sometimes just alone by themselves. But then they'll say, you know, we brought laughter into their homes that once a week or whenever we were doing it. That makes me feel good. That part of sharing, because although it was a lot of nonsense, there was actually some good topics and stuff that we could cover and just talking story because we all do it differently. Everyone on the panel did it differently, and we'd learn from each other. And again, that's that whole family thing, right? The family unit, sharing and giving, and not worrying about receiving. But if I were to receive $1 million, yeah, I'd take it.
Well, you can share with other people if you get $1 million.
No, I wouldn't. No, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding.
Oh, well, thanks again for sharing everything today and your friendship over the years and being so kind to me and my family as well. They really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Aloha to your parents. Aloha to your parents, man.
I'll put all the links to your stuff in the show notes as well. So if people want to get some lessons from you, perhaps they can do that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks, Cameron. Appreciate this, man. This was fun. We gotta do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it again. All right. Well, aloha, and thanks again.
Aloha. Cool.
Take it easy.
Mr. Bryan Tolentino. Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying Ukulele Stories, please subscribe and tell your friends about it. To take us out, here's Bryan with Puamana.